going to be proud of today, so don't miss any of that. Simon O'Donnell after 8 o'clock as well. Brandy, we've been banging on about esports, and we're going to speak to Justin Rodsky about that from the Bombers a bit later on. But there's some weird but some magnificent things that continue to happen in the world of sport. We've touched on a couple of the odd ones this morning, but the Special Olympics Australia have got a national game series. It's been going for over 40 years now. I don't know much about it, to be honest. Its 41st competition is going to be in Adelaide next year. 11 different sports are going to be contested. And they just struck a fantastic relationship with the NAB. And we've got a couple of key people involved in this, one of the organisers and a couple of the athletes, or one athlete and an ambassador. We'll say good day to you first, Simon Rodder, who joins us from Special Olympics Australia, the Development and Partnerships Manager. How are you?
Morning, Andy. Morning, Campbell. Very well. How are you?
Good, good. Tell us about this tell us about the National Games to begin with. How long, am I right in saying this is going to be the 41st version of it, and how they actually started up?
41st year of Special Olympics in Australia. We're a global movement, peak organisation for people with an intellectual disability to participate in sport. Started by JFK's sister in 1968 because one of their siblings had an intellectual disability. So it's about creating equal access to sport. It's the 41st year in Australia. It's the 11th National Games.
Okay, right.
So much like our namesake, the Olympics, which we're the only other organisation in the world that is allowed to use the word Olympics in its title. We go every 4 years for our peak event. Next year's the 11th National Games in Adelaide from April 16 to April 20.
And how many athletes are going to be heading to Adelaide to compete?
We have over 1,000 athletes going in the 11 sports. AFL and table tennis are exhibition sports next year. And then you multiply that by an infinite number for family supporters, volunteers and officials.
Tell us what sort of range of disabilities we're talking about here.
Well, intellectual disabilities is an interesting one because it's almost an invisible disability in society. With physical disabilities, you can kind of identify by sight what people's disabilities are. Intellectual disability is a little bit more difficult because, like, you'll meet Michael and Jake, you know, have a chat, they're in here, you know, compete, train, as athletes always do, but maybe miss out on a few of the other opportunities in life through employment and schooling. So sport's a great vehicle for being able to provide them access into the community.
Oh, no, absolutely no doubt about that. The boys are here. Jake Dillon-Mott is a basketballer, and you've just come back from representing Australia over in Italy where you picked up bronze medal, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct, yes.
That must have been an unbelievable experience for you.
It was a great experience. Like, I'd definitely do it again.
So, how many countries were competing in the World Championships over in Italy?
There was about 5 other countries.
Yeah.
So there was France, there was Egypt, Australia, Portugal and Poland.
And when you went over there, was Australia, is there a kind of global ranking order? Did you know you were going over there with a chance to pick up a medal? Was Australia one of the kind of favoured nations to medal over in those games?
Yeah, we were one of the favourites, but you know, it was like a great experience. Like,
what position do you play?
I'm a shooter and a small forward.
Right, okay. And did you shoot well when you're over there?
Yeah, and I got the award for the best top scorer.
Did you?
At the end of it, so yeah, it was
Bit of
great.
Ben Simmons.
There's a little lean operator, got a bit of lanky height about him.
Who do you follow in the NBA?
I went for Bulls when Michael Jordan played.
Okay, yeah, nice.
So how much, are you playing in a regular league? You're playing every week in Australia? You just got a constant...
I used to, but they don't have my age group anymore, so it's like it's a bit hard.
Okay.
But I do play for like 4 other clubs.
So you have your intellectual disability that you're contending with. Does that stop you from playing in any, just a regular league against...
No way, I can play Special Olympics, I can play mainstream, I can play pretty much anywhere. That's
great. Well, you're sitting alongside Michael van Wildenberg, who is my favourite person on the planet right now because of what he's just said.
Tell us what you've walked into the studio, you've looked at Andy, you've given him a hug, and what did you say to him?
You look more handsome inside.
I don't think anyone's ever said that to you.
It's the first time that's ever been said by anybody. Now, Michael, you play as well. You compete in basketball and athletics as well, but you're going to be in Adelaide as an ambassador for the Australian team.
Victorian team.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are your responsibilities going to be?
Actually, I don't know because I have never done that experience before. I've done that leadership and all that stuff, but my role is maybe to look at the older ones and see what I need to do as a team. It's a different role as a team than we're doing it athletes as a team. So it's more. I'm very excited.
One of the great things about Special Olympics is the extra life skills stuff as well. So Michael this year graduated from the athlete leadership program. So it's about public speaking. He's also gone through some administration and governance training. So opportunities like this, obviously being on a high rating breakfast show, are really important for building up some self-esteem as well.
Well, he's certainly learned how to win people over and influence them straight away. Like, he's got no issues in that regard. He's just won me over straight away with what he said the minute he walked in. In terms of, to you, Simon, in terms of changing attitudes, and I imagine that is one of the key pillars of what something like the Special Olympics Australia does and hopes to achieve, particularly through our national games like the one that we're participating in next year. How important is that?
It's so important. Sometimes people don't really put a light on disability, and you have these peak events, and it is about starting the conversation to embrace inclusion, respect, acceptance. We have a huge focus on schools, trying to educate parents as well about introducing their kids to sport early. People with an intellectual disability, all their health outcomes are much worse. So dental, obesity, blood pressure, all the usual markers of health are highly affected because of a lack of activity. So you've got to get them starting early, and also introduce them to mainstream sporting clubs.
I was going to say that. Like, listen to Jake talk about, he plays just in mainstream leagues with mainstream teams. That to open the rest of our views to the fact that, okay, they might have a disability, but it doesn't mean they can't be a shooter in our local basketball team. Though, changing those sorts of attitudes through conversations like the one we're having this morning and the games that these guys are participating in must be unbelievably valuable.
It is. It's because, it's valuable as an individual for these guys, but when they go into mainstream sporting clubs and people have a little bit more acceptance, that changes that conversation at that club, and it goes beyond that club into the schools, into the local communities, to be able to promote people with an intellectual disability as being capable. And
to either of you two answer this question, but do you find that people, once they realise that you've got the disability that you're dealing with, but it doesn't stop you from participating in society the way you do you find that people change the way they behave around you guys? Are people different? Do people treat you differently because you start playing in a mainstream basketball competition? They know that you've got an intellectual disability, but
no, not that I know of. No, when I played in mainstream, they don't really know I have disability.
Great, perfect. Yeah, that's great.
So they don't really know.
Yeah. The language is really important. The more we go down many paths, we understand how important language becomes. I was looking at some clippings back from 40 years ago when the national games first started, and some of the language that was being used back in the 70s when these games were instituted for the first time, you can't believe they were using words that they were using back then that we wouldn't use now. Are we getting better as a community outside of the Special Olympics community at understanding, how to talk to and talk about people with these disabilities?
I think across all of society we're getting better. I think the most important thing for people is to not be scared.
Yeah.
Ask questions, talk to people like an individual, and I think that's probably the biggest cultural change. I mean, we trip over words all the time. We can't kind of walk on eggshells with people and treat them with respect and as individuals. And I think that they'll educate you, and that's the most important thing. Talk to the person, not to the people around them.
Yeah.
And language comes from that.
How many athletes are we going to be having over at these games next
We've got 150 athletes representing Team Victoria in 8 of the 11 sports, so there's a really good contingent there. A few of them are today visiting NAB for an exciting launch as partners of the game, so it's great to have NAB on board as an organisation and to share the journey with them.
So I imagine most of it would be government funding. Is that where most of the money comes from to support the athletes?
Well, that's where Special Olympics has kind of two delivery models. We've got these peak events that are largely self-funded and fundraised, and then we have the grassroots participation, like most Australian grassroots sport. The large amount of the funding comes from government, so it is really important. And the disability sports sector isn't recognised that well when it comes to government
Yeah,
funding.
that's-
So it's something that's a regular conversation. That
So to get somebody like NAB, or to get a corporate giant like NAB on board, prepared to support the athletes and the movement, that must be pretty significant, I imagine.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive, and you know, for an organisation like ours, often we don't kind of get the same recognition or, you know, corporate sponsorship or airtime as other mainstream sports get. So for NAB to jump on board, that will just be so important, and for them to push it out to their local communities through their branches as well.
And look, there won't be the sort of mainstream media coverage of this that people like you guys would like to have. That's just going to be a reality of life. If people are listening to this for the first time and they're going to make a mental note to, I want to stay in touch with this and see how these boys and girls go, is there a way they can sort of follow the progress of the team leading up to Adelaide next year?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, the usual social media channels, Facebook, Twitter with Special Olympics Australia, the National Games 2018. We'll be doing a lot of promotion. We've got some great partners promoting us through the media, and they'll be able to just do the usual searches through that.
Yep.
And also, you know, if you do want to fundraise or donate money to individuals in particular, you just go through those Special Olympics Australia sources, and that can support individual athletes.
Well, we'll certainly stay in touch. Boys, been a joy meeting you. Good luck. Good luck with your ambassadorial role. And good luck shooting some hoops and making those three
Train
tries
hard.
for you.
Good luck for Adelaide.
Simon, thanks for coming in and telling us about it. It's a really big deal. Special Olympics Australia, National Games, Adelaide next year. Simon Rodder, Jake Dolomite and Michael Van Wildenberg joining us in the studio. I've got to get a break out of the way. It's already 7 minutes to 7. Good on you, boys. Good on you. Are there as many girls as there are boys in the team? Is it a sort of regular sort of 50-50 split?
Yeah, it's probably, you know, in all honesty, it's probably a little bit like that